Konoha 13. The children we watched go from genin to leaders of Konoha, one of the most iconic group of little munchkins that turned into monsters. With every single one of them, whether or not they were relevant to the show or not, becoming one of the strongest shinobi on Earth. Well, obviously the spectrum of strength within the Konoha 13 is about as large a spectrum as you could find, as the spectrum contains both Tenten and Naruto and Sasuke. Today, I don't necessarily want to talk about strength. You see, we've already done a ranking video on the Konoha 13 as they fall in terms of strength. Now, this video was done a long time ago when I didn't know what I was talking about, and I accidentally left Shikamaru out of the video, so I will remake it at some point or another, but that is not the goal of today's video. No, today, instead of talking about strength, I want to talk about the Konoha 13 in a different light. Today, instead of strength, I want to talk about usefulness, plot necessity, whether or not we actually need these characters, if they died tomorrow, if anybody would feel sad. Today, I want to talk about what the Konoha 13 have done with their lives and the impact that it's had on the ninja world. And what's really interesting about this list is that it doesn't necessarily coincide with the strength list, as some ninjas who were considered weak and were relatively useless in the first 750 episodes of Naruto have now become some of the most important people in Konoha. And while unfortunately usefulness does get tied into strength a fair amount when you have to fight extra dimensional demons trying to take over the entire world, there's definitely some characters very high on this list who are very low on our strength list, which is why making a list like this is so interesting, because looking at characters through the black and white lens of who can punch the hardest is a dumb way to look at anime, as there's characters who can't punch that hard who are instrumental in the universe of Naruto now moving forward, which is character development, an incredibly important thing to take into appreciation when watching any form of media. Not always about who can punch the hardest. So with no further ado, let's get into the Konoha 13 ranked and explained by usefulness. But before we get into all that, guys, today I want to talk about one of our favorite reoccurring sponsors to the page, Raid Shadow Legends. But this isn't your average Raid ad read, no, because today we are celebrating Raid's 4th birthday. Yes, that's right, the game that reinvented mobile gaming is turning 4 years old. And in these 4 years, Raid has gone on to prove beyond a shadow of a doubt that they are the greatest mobile game ever created, offering a super in-depth RPG battle system, hundreds of champions to choose from, and millions of ways to raid your way. Not to mention the amazing graphics and intense PvE boss fights. And in order to celebrate Raid's birthday, we're gonna celebrate how long me and Raid have been together by looking back at some of the first times that I ever talked about Raid. And the first time that I ever talked about Raid was over a year ago on this video, The Only Ninja More Infamous Than Itachi. And wow, did I not know how lighting worked back then. What was I using to light my face? A miniature sun? I look translucent. Not to mention that hairline. A trip to Turkey was maybe the best thing I've ever done with my money. I can't get over this lighting. I look like a ghost. Now, of course, the Raid assets look fantastic. They always do, but I do not. It's crazy to think that still a year ago, Raid looked this incredible. And it's crazy that to this day, Ignatius is still one of the strongest heroes in Raid. If I'm being real, Raid believed in me before a lot of other brands. They were one of the first ads I ever got on this page. And because of them, I was able to buy equipment that made me look like I'm not being lit by a miniature sun. I no longer look like a walking skeleton on camera. And a lot of that has to do with the faith that Raid had in me as a content creator, which is why I have faith in Raid, because they're always adapting. Raid is always coming out with brand new content and heroes to change the way that you raid. Not to mention they're always giving out incredible loot, like they're giving out for their 4th anniversary, where they're giving out dedicated offers, free gifts, promo codes, events in a brand new fusion event. And in this brand new fusion event, you can get your own anniversary themed legendary champion. Not to mention that Raid is taking you on a trip down memory lane as they're giving you a recap video showing you all of your previous stats in Raid. And Amazon Prime members who just got Gembo, keep your eyes out for a brand new drop of some savage, incredible gear from March 2nd to March 30th. So what are you guys waiting for? Use the link in my description or the QR code on the screen right now to get a ton of bonuses. We're talking Epic Hero Kellen the Strike, amongst other things like energy refills and XP brews. And since it's Raid's birthday, we're giving out extra presents. New and existing players, if they enter the code 4 years Raid, get a huge bonus. This bonus includes 4 legendary skill tomes amongst a myriad of other gifts. So what are you guys waiting for? It's time to raid your way. Before we get to ranking or explaining anything, guys, please, for me, Like this video, subscribe to the page, and hit that noti bell. And if you like the sound of my voice ranking and explaining things, then you're gonna love my other channel, The Weeb Commander, where I rank and explain things from every anime that's not Boruto or Naruto. And if you like the idea of me talking about a myriad of different anime, then you're gonna love my brand new anime podcast that I'm doing with Danny Mata called Otaku's Anonymous, which is available on YouTube, Spotify, and Apple Podcasts. So I've made sure that with today's video, I've written down every single member of the Konoha 13, so we're not gonna miss Shikamaru again. And I'd like to lay down a couple of rules before we get into this video. One, well, I will be taking into consideration lifetime achievements, like everything that this character has accomplished up to the current moment of Boruto. I am gonna be more heavily weighting what their current role in Konoha is and what they're doing in Konoha as of this moment. As for situations like Neji, who I would say played a more vital role in the Fourth Great Shinobi World War than people like Tenten, sacrificing his life for Hinata and Naruto, but is now very much dead, meaning he has no current role in Konoha, meaning he is as useless as anybody could possibly be, even more useless than Tenten. Rating people like Tenten or Kiba, or people who really aren't doing all that much in Konoha right now, lower than a literal dead guy feels weird. Which is a fantastic segue to our number 13 spot, Neji. Neji's true usefulness came in OG Naruto, where he was a child genius, thought to be stronger than the likes of Sasuke, and maybe on par with the likes of Gaara. However, he despised Hinata as a member of the main branch family because his side branch family had been suffering under them for generations. His true and basically only usefulness came from his battle against Naruto, where in the Chunin exams, Neji came up against Naruto, where Naruto overcame Neji with the power of hard work and determination, which made Neji realize that somebody can overcome the subject of their birth, making Neji believe in the power of hard work and also forgiving Hinata for the station of her birth. His second only real point of usefulness was in the Sasuke retrieval arc, where he came toe-to-toe with the spider mouth guy of the Sound Village 4, whose name I am completely forgetting. And while Neji appeared to be initially outmatched by this member of the Sound Village 4 who used his curse mark to be significantly stronger than Neji allowed himself to be struck with one of his arrows and used Gentle Fist down the chakra line attached to said arrow to kill this incredibly strong curse mark level 2 ninja. Now technically Neji was supposed to die right here, but Kishimoto's editors didn't allow that, which is why Neji wasn't written into basically the rest of the story. In the next canon time we saw him was when he threw his body in front of even more sharp objects, just that this time there was more than one. Now in this moment that Neji saved Hinata and Naruto from the incoming volley of wooden sticks from the Ten Tails, he not only solidified that Hinata and Naruto would get together, which is basically what Kishimoto was trying to do, but also saved their life, which, like, good job. Not that many people have saved both Hinata and Naruto's lives, but also he's dead now, so he's not doing anything, and thus last place. But just barely squeaking above the actual literal dead guy is our number 12 spot, Tenten. Tenten, unlike Neji, didn't have some profound battle during the Chunin exams. Tenten came up against Temari and tried to throw a bunch of ninja tools at a woman who can cut down a forest with wind. Believe it or not, didn't work, and Tenten's spine got cracked on Temari's fan like an egg gets cracked on a spatula at a hibachi grill. But don't worry, she participated in the Fourth Great Shinobi World War. Surely she helped in some regard. Well, she did pick up one of the treasure tools of the Sage of Six Paths, and she was able to use it once. Now, this tool was the Basho-sen, a treasure tool of the Sage of Six Paths, a giant fan that, when swung, creates a massive amount of a certain elemental release. And Tenten was able to master it instantly. However, she only had enough chakra to swing it once. That's actually not true. Upon rewatching, she was able to use it 3 times. And with those 3 uses, she was able to destroy 2 of Kakuzu's masks, which is no small feat. I mean, is it saving Naruto and Hinata's lives or actually defeating Kakuzu? No, but she was able to defeat 2 of his masks, and that's pretty much it. Tenten canonically has less screen time than Naruto's swing and Tauntaun Shizune's pig. Nowadays, Tenten isn't much more useful. She runs a ninja weapon shop in Konoha, which you would assume would be a booming business, except for the fact that she opened it during peacetime when nobody is using ninja weapons. Not to mention that ninja tools and shinobi wear are turning more mechanical than analog nowadays. And she sells kunai and swords. Really, the only crazy thing that Tenten is currently doing is keeping an eye on some of the treasure tools of the Sage of Six Paths, which Kinkaku and Ginkaku may actually still be sealed in. So in a way, Tenten is keeping an eye on Kinkaku and Ginkaku, while casually having 3 of the strongest weapons in the Naruto universe chilling in her dying store. Listen, I didn't say all the weak people were gonna be at the top of the list, but speaking of weak people that refuse to be useful, coming in at number 11, we have Kiba. Kiba, fun fact, was my favorite character growing up. I thought his jacket was cool. I liked that he had fangs and claws. I liked that he had dogs. I liked his Princess Mononosuke face paint. But unfortunately, he wasn't Kishimoto's favorite character. Because the first real time we get a look at Kiba, it's in his battle against Naruto in the Chunin exams, where for a while he's piecing up Naruto until Naruto farts in his face, which overwhelms his incredible sense of smell, which Naruto then capitalizes on and knocks him out. As at that point as a child, I realized I made the wrong choice. That was until the Sasuke retrieval arc, where Kiba actually played a massive role in a battle against probably the strongest member of the Sound Village 4, Sakon and Ukon. And while the majority of this battle is Kiba getting absolutely destroyed or running away, the scene where Sakon and Ukon creep into Kiba's body and he stabs himself to hurt them as well was pretty badass. Now, of course, Kiba did have to be saved by the Sand siblings, but still, pretty cool moment. Kiba then proceeds to act as a filler hero, as Kiba and Kiba's team are the main focus of like 5 or 6 filler arcs in OG Naruto. He doesn't really return to canon until Shippuden, when Kakashi puts together an 8-man team looking for Itachi, and while he is the person that allows them to find Itachi because his nose is better than Kakashi's Ninken, when Tobi pulls up to stop them so Sasuke and Itachi can have their battle, Tobi so hilariously disrespects Kiba, it's not even funny. As Tobi uses his Kamui ability to send everybody who's trying to attack him just through him, instead of using his Kamui ability against Kiba, he just steps to the side to avoid his attack. It was a painful watch. And Kiba does battle against the Predapath and the Pain Assault with his mother Sume. Because they're so proficient in taijutsu, the Predapath actually does have to retreat. That's basically it. I mean, Kiba does take out a bunch of White Zetsu and the Ten Tails clones, and he does defeat the reincarnated version of Sakon and Ukon, but that's basically it. Nowadays, Kiba is not the Hokage like he thought he was gonna be. Instead, Kiba is a part of the Konoha police force, as his training with dogs makes him the perfect match for the Konoha police force, which was significantly weakened after the Uchiha massacre. On top of that, as probably the best dog trainer on Earth, Kiba has gotten a lot of TV endorsements, as he advertises for things like dog foods and basically anything dog related, making Kiba a pseudo-celebrity in Konoha, which has made him incredibly popular with the ladies, which isn't running the village, but you know, it's still pretty good. So for the fact that he's at least popular and he's working as a police officer, yeah, we're gonna put him higher than 10-10. However, the fact that Kiba is still working as a ninja adjacent character makes him being placed under this next character a touch confusing. Because coming in at number 10, we have Hinata, who isn't a ninja anymore. She's a mother. Hinata's entire role in Boruto has pretty much been boiled down to raise Himawari in Boruto, which, as Himawari is like 8 or 9 years old, kind of makes sense. Somebody has to do it, and it's not going to be Naruto. Even Boruto is only 12 or 13 years old. They do need a parent. Well, I guess Naruto didn't need parents, but honestly, that turned out a lot better than it should have. And because of this, anytime there's a great threat to Konoha as a village, Hinata is pretty much all but left out. The most specific example being when Naruto activated Sage Mode to chase after Kawaki and Boruto, who were battling against Code in the most recent episodes of the anime. Hinata wanted to accompany Naruto to make sure that her children were okay, but Naruto said, what if something happens to all of us? Who's gonna raise Himawari? At which point, Hinata just decided to stay at home. So why is a literal housewife higher on the list than 3 other people? Well, 1, because one of them's dead, and 2, because Hinata accomplished more in her lifetime prior to being a housewife than those 3 combined. Well, obviously, we saw Hinata become one of the most talented Gentle Fist users in history, being able to master the Twin Lions technique, which not only increased her power, but her aptitude for Gentle Fist. Hinata in The Last alone accomplished more than those 3 combined. Well, obviously The Last revolves around Hinata being abducted by Toneri and then forced into marriage with Toneri. Hinata in The Last receives the chakra of Hamura, Kaguya's other son, and with the help of Naruto use a Twin Lion Fist to destroy a Tenseigan, a power bank of Otsutsuki Byakugans that could be used to pull the moon into the earth and destroy it. In essence, it was up to Hinata to destroy a possible doomsday device, and she accomplished that, regardless of what else she accomplished in Naruto, which isn't a whole lot. I mean, she put up a pretty good fight against Neji in the Chunin exams. She held Naruto's hands in the war arc. This one feat makes her significantly more useful than Kiba or Tenten or Neji. On top of that, being the mother of Boruto and Himawari, possibly 2 of the strongest human beings to ever live in the Naruto universe, pretty impressive. Especially when you consider the fact that it's probably largely to do with her, as outside of being a housewife, she is still the head of the Hyuga clan, bringing one of the most powerful clans on Earth into the modern times. So yeah, she's taken the 10 spot. However, even though what she accomplished in The Last was impressive, it's hard for me to justify putting an actual housewife higher up than any acting ninja, even if some of those acting ninja aren't really doing that much currently. But because of that, coming into the number 9 spot, we have Choji. Choji's role in the Naruto universe has hardly changed from when he was a genin. He is to this day just an active ninja for Konoha. He gets assigned missions, he goes out on missions, he comes back from missions. The only thing that's really changed for Choji is that he's now married to Karui and he has his daughter Chocha. And that's basically it. He's just a jonin in Konoha. But the lack of his role changing doesn't mean he's not useful. In fact, in the light novel, manga, and anime adaptations of the Steam Ninja Scrolls, it was revealed to us that Choji is the physically strongest ninja in Konoha, as Choji was stated to be the only person who could move a boulder, roughly the size of a mountain. Now, we have to assume by strength, they probably mean non-chakra assisted strength, because the strongest person in Konoha would easily be Sakura. But Choji, during his days as a ninja, has actually accomplished a fair amount. Choji in the Sasuke retrieval arc, with the assistance of the tricolored pills, was able to defeat Jirobo. And while obviously Tsunade had to study the tricolored pills to bring him back to life, he still survived. And after being revived from this, Choji no longer needed the tricolored pills because he could access his butterfly mode, which he then learned to use in conjunction with his body expansion, which made Choji a threat, as he was one of the major reasons that Hidan and Kakuzu were killed, as Choji, like Tenten in the war arc, destroyed two of Kakuzo's masks. And then in the Fourth Great Shinobi World War, Choji fought against Ginkaku, Asuma, and even the Ten Tails. Well, technically it was the Ghetto statue, but still, the fact that Choji was able to go toe-to-toe with the husk of the Ten Tails in the Ghetto statue is very impressive. Not to mention, he also captures and seals Jirobo. Choji was a massive help during the war arc. We just don't see that much from him now in Boruto, which unfortunately is also the case for a number 8 spot, because coming in at number 8, we have Rock Lee. Rock Lee, just like Choji, is still a ninja. He was promoted to the level of Jonin and still goes out on ninja missions. And while his character reworking was atrocious, he still remains one of the strongest people in Konoha. And sure, that didn't help him in his battle against Ishiki, even though he should have just opened to the 7th gate and he would have been an absolute menace for Ishiki, whose only weakness was taijutsu. I still reckon if Rock Lee opened to the 8th gate, he probably could have beaten Ishiki in a fight. But that doesn't matter because it didn't happen, because Rock Lee isn't that relevant anymore. Well, this is a shame because Rock Lee was a fan favorite in Naruto and has a son, Metal, who also really doesn't play that much of a role in Boruto. Rock Lee has somewhat faded into obscurity in the Boruto timeline. So why do I have Rock Lee above Choji in terms of usefulness? Well, one, because as a ninja, he is stronger than Choji and therefore technically more useful in his current role. And two, because his role in OG Naruto was actually very motivating to Naruto, as Naruto saw Rock Lee go up against the likes of Gaara and Sasuke and Kimimaru and come out relatively unscathed. And while Rock Lee did technically lose to Gaara and probably would have lost against Kimimaru if Gaara didn't show up, the fact that Rock Lee, a child with no ninjutsu or genjutsu, was battling on par with these highest level threats in Konoha was incredibly inspirational to Naruto. He was also somewhat useful in Shippuden, playing a vital role in the Kazekage rescue mission arc, where he was able to help my guy battle against the Kisame lookalike and was able to scare off Deidara so Gaara could be revived. But Lee did something that Choji couldn't even dream of. Lee kicked Madara in half. When Obito and Madara were connected to the Ten Tails, Naruto and Lee charged them together. Naruto was in charge of making sure that Obito's connection to the Ten Tails was severed, and Rock Lee was in charge of making sure that Madara's was. And therefore, in order to sever Madara from the beast, Rock Lee kicks Madara in half and cuts the connection. And while obviously in the grand scheme of things, this doesn't really account to much, in Naruto the Last, Rock Lee is useful once again, as a giant meteor that has split off from the moon is about to fall on Konoha. And it's at this point that it's revealed that Rock Lee has been training students in Konoha known as the Suicide Corps. These are students who are training in the 8 gates. Rock Lee and the rest of them open up their gates and cut this meteor in half. Now, while obviously this isn't enough in the grand scheme of things because Sasuke has to step in and destroy the rest of the meteor, the fact that Rock Lee is training other people in the 8 gates and they're known as the Suicide Corps is sick. Therefore, he gets the 8 spot. And since we're talking about being a teacher, coming into the number 7 spot is Shino. Shino is to this day one of my favorite characters in Naruto and Boruto. His part 1 and part 2 designs are incredibly sick. I hate his Boruto redesign, but I hate everybody's Boruto redesign. Shino is known for quite literally never losing a battle. The only reason that they didn't send him on the Sasuke retrieval arc is because they would have got Sasuke back. Shino's first badass moment is the Chunin exams against Zaku, the guy with the wind palms from the Hidden Sound Village. And in this fight, it was revealed to us that Shino is that guy, as he filled Zaku's hand air tubes with bugs that didn't allow for Zaku's body air to leave, which in the manga blew off Zaku's arms, while in the anime just kind of made him bleed from the elbows. And then in the Konoha Crush arc, he found himself up in battle against Kankura, who he beat. And in the Pain Assault arc, Shino and the rest of his brothers battle against Konan's clones. clones. And in the war arc, Shino not only destroys a bunch of White Zetsu clones and a bunch of clones of the Ten Tails, but also comes into combat with a reincarnated version of Torune, probably the strongest ever Aburame member outside of himself. Torune is trying to release the Jar of Poison technique, a technique that requires Torune to collect thousands of dead bodies and infect them with poisonous bugs. And then, once all of the bodies have been infected, release a massive cloud of poison that probably would have taken out a large swath of the Shinobi Alliance. And Shino, who refuses to use some of the strongest moves of the Aburame because they're kind of evil, like the Jar of Poison, was able to defeat Torune without using them, solidifying Shino as the strongest ever Aburame. But the real reason that I have Shino this high on the list is because while he is still a ninja, he's also now a teacher. See, Shino, as a soft-spoken individual who's always being talked over, decided to try and overcome this fear by becoming a teacher in the Ninja Academy, where he was a teacher for the likes of Mitsuki, Sarada, Boruto, the next upcoming generation. And being a teacher in the Shinobi Academy is an incredibly important job, as it's up to Shino to deduce whether or not these children are ready to become genin, ready or not to start a relatively war-trodden life. Not to mention that Shino is also making all of these children into better, full-rounded shinobi. And on top of that, in a battle between Shino and Mitsuki, it was revealed that Shino probably could have beaten Snake Sage Mode Mitsuki. However, doing it would have killed Mitsuki, and therefore Shino decided not to. So yeah, for the fact that he holds a very vital role in Konoha nowadays, I'm putting Shino at 7. But his role as a teacher is nearly as vital as the next entry on our list's role, Sai. You see, because Sai is technically a teacher, but he's also a lot more than that. See, Sai is the current head of the Anbu, which makes sense considering the fact that there's very few people out there who know the system better than Sai, as he was essentially born into the root and molded into the perfect assassin. Now, Sai during Shippuden accomplished a fair amount. He was instrumental in the battle against Datara and Sasori. He was part of the Sealing Corps in the 4th Great Shinobi World War that was responsible for sealing away a lot of the Edo Tensei ninja. But more specifically, I want to focus on his role in Boruto, as Sai is genuinely probably the first very important person we've talked about. See, while technically the Naruto world during Boruto is in an era of peace, this doesn't mean that the Anbu isn't still incredibly present. See, while shinobis are still sent out on missions, there's no wars. And while the villages are at peace with each other, there is still information that is gathered on other villages by the Anbu. And we've seen this in both light novels and in Boruto's anime. A great example of this is in Shikamaru's light novel, where the Hidden Stone is threatening to leave the Shinobi Union because the Hidden Stone Daimyo wants ninja to be ninja again and wants to fight a war. The Anbu play an incredibly instrumental role in this light novel as they collect information about what's going on in the Land of Stone, to such an extent that they're able to deduce what's happening in the Land of Stone and build a plan on how to deal with it politically. And without the Anbu and without Sai's direction in matters such as these, there would have been a 5th Great Shinobi World War. So clandestine operations are still absolutely happening, as if there's anything that Konoha is ever curious about, they send the Anbu. And not to mention, as the leader of the Anbu, Sai is technically Naruto's top protector, as the Anbu, while they're meant to act on clandestine operations and assassinate political figures from other places, they're also supposed to protect the Hokage, which is why we saw Kakashi assigned to the Anbu after the death of Rin and Obito, and why Hiruzen was always surrounded by Anbu members. So now, not only is Sai running one of the most important sectors in Konoha, he's also in charge of protecting Naruto, and not to mention that he's also training, I believe, Team 5 with the Kakashi lookalike in the Naruto anime to be members of the Anbu. So just like Shino, he's also a teacher while operating in a much higher capacity. But enough about Sai, let's talk about his wife, because coming in at number 5, we have Ino. While Ino in Naruto and Naruto Shippuden may have not been that useful, if not useful at all, did find a little bit of use after her father died in the 4th Great Shinobi World War, stepping in as the Yamanaka cell phone, using her Yamanaka powers to connect all of the important people on the battlefield telepathically, making sure that the tailed beast bomb of the Ten Tails shot at the Shinobi Allied Forces control center didn't cripple their force. And without Ino's telepathy and Shikamaru's planning, the Allied Shinobi forces probably would have failed in their battle against Madara and Obito. So in that capacity, she played a massive role during the war. She also played a big role in the sealing of Asuma, which is also key. But I don't want to talk about what Ino accomplished in Naruto and Naruto Shippuden, because comparatively to what she's doing in Boruto, it's not all that much. See, Ino took her role as the village's forefront Yamanaka one step further after the 4th Great Shinobi World War, mastering her Yamanaka clan ability and applying it into a practical idea. See, Ino is currently in charge of 2 separate divisions. The Konoha Barrier Team, which she created, where a barrier has been built around Konoha that tracks the chakra of anybody who goes in or leaves, based on Ino and the rest of the Yamanaka's abilities to single in on and identify individual chakra signature. And while every single Yamanaka can do this, it's stated that that Ino is the best in her clan. With the aid of this technique, the Konoha barrier team is able to deduce if anybody with a non-registered chakra signature is either entering or leaving Konoha, making Konoha somewhat impregnable. As the second that somebody with an unidentified chakra signature tries to enter the village, everybody in the village is alerted immediately. Most specifically, Naruto, Shikamaru, and Sai are immediately updated through a telepathic connection they have with Ino, meaning that it's almost impossible to invade Konoha currently because of the defense system that Ino created and currently operates. But this isn't all that Ino is involved in, as Ino is currently heavily involved in possibly the leader of the Konoha interrogation team, as Ino doesn't need to interrogate or torture people for information because she can probe into their brain, allowing Ino to pull any information she needs out of somebody's brain just by making contact with them, making her the perfect interrogation tool. No torture, no blood, no screaming required, just a little bit of hand contact. And immediately anybody's true intentions or the location of their allies is revealed, meaning that not only is Ino in charge of making sure that Konoha is safe, she's also in charge of making sure that anybody who tries to invade Konoha is found immediately. She is one of the most vital pieces in Konoha's defense, which is a far cry from her usefulness in Naruto and Naruto Shippuden, but is very much a welcome change. But speaking of people whose parents died during the 4th Great Shinobi World War, coming up at number 4, we have Shikamaru. Now, if I wanted to go over everything that Shikamaru accomplished in Naruto and Naruto Shippuden, this video would be 3 hours long. He was obviously the only person from the Konoha 13 who became a Chunin the first time around. He led the Sasuke retrieval arc. He defeated Tayuya. He defeated Hidan. After the death of his father Shikaku, he became the brain of the village, strategizing for the entirety of the allied shinobi forces after losing his father and while still very much being on the battlefield. Now, instead of talking about what he did in Naruto and Naruto Shippuden, I want to talk about what he's done after that. 2 years after the war arc, Shikamaru assumed the role as the chief coordinator for the Shinobi Union, meaning he was essentially in charge of informing the entirety of the Shinobi Union the going-ons of everybody on Earth, meaning it was up to him to maintain peace between the Shinobi villages. So if anything important was going on that was threatening the peace of the Shinobi Union, it was up to Shikamaru to make a plan on how to assuage that thing. Now, the first thing that Shikamaru runs into comes from his first light novel, A Cloud Drifting in Silent Darkness. Now, most of you are probably familiar with this plotline because it got animated into the end of Naruto. It's a story about the Land of Silence and how Sai gets abducted in the Land of Silence, and how Shikamaru has to plan a rescue for Sai. And while trying to save Sai, not only does Shikamaru save Sai, but he also overthrows a government using genjutsu to mind wash its subordinates, while also basically finalizing things with Tamari and Sai and Ino, finding a good reason to kiss. Not to mention that a couple months after that, Hinata got abducted by Toneri. And Naruto, believing that Hinata had gone with Toneri voluntarily, kind of gave up on trying to get her back. And it was up to Shikamaru to encourage Naruto to not give up. So without Shikamaru, Toneri probably would have thrown the moon into the earth. And then of course there's Shikamaru's second light novel, A Cloud Dancing in Forlorn Falling Petals, which we've already touched on when we were talking about Sai, and how Shikamaru was instrumental in making sure that the Stone Daimyo couldn't pull the village hidden in the stones out of the Shinobi Union, as Shikamaru brought together a continental meeting between every single daimyo and leader of small village, where he put Naruto in front of the biggest possible crowd to argue for the continued existence of the Shinobi Union, once again avoiding the 5th Great Shinobi World War. And outside of specific events, outside of operating as the chief advisor of the Shinobi Union, Shikamaru is now the chief advisor of Naruto, which, as you can imagine, is most likely a nightmare, as Shikamaru ends up doing a lot of the daily work of the Hokage, as Naruto does most of the PR and political trips while also occasionally taking a break to fight an alien. But genuinely, it's up to Shikamaru to make the hard choices. It's a dynamic very similar to Tobirama and Hashirama, while Hashirama was the Hokage. While Naruto wants to give away everything for free, Shikamaru is there to make sure that Konoha continues to function. And while in Boruto, this does paint Shikamaru as the bad guy a lot of the time, unfortunately, Naruto's idea of the world is unrealistic, and therefore it takes somebody with a grasp on realism to guide Naruto to actual choices. Because God knows it wasn't going to be Naruto's supposed best friend helping him out, because coming in at number 3, much to my chagrin, is Sasuke. With the top 4 here, I'm not going to go over what they did in Naruto and Naruto Shippuden. You know it already. I don't need to tell you about what Sasuke accomplished. Sasuke is currently the Shadow Hokage to Naruto, a role that really only he could take, as being the Shadow Hokage to Naruto in the current time period doesn't require spying on other villages like possible Shadow Hokages previous to Sasuke, but instead getting information on the Otsutsuki. And since the Otsutsuki live in their own dimensions, only people who have dimensional travel abilities can really gather information on them, which is Sasuke's job, as he's the only person with space-time ninjutsu out of Boruto and Kawaki. And ever since the war arc, this has basically been Sasuke's job. He uses his 6-Tomei Rinnegan to pop between dimensions and get a grasp of what the Otsutsuki are trying to accomplish. Because of him, we have basically all the information that we currently have on Otsutsuki, outside of the information given to us by Momoshiki and Amida. But their relatively recent entrance as far as the Naruto universe is concerned really didn't help Naruto or Sasuke when they were trying to lead Konoha into an era of peace that wouldn't be interrupted by the Otsutsuki. Not to mention that Sasuke was also about 50% of the reason that Momoshiki was killed in the first place. As well, yes, all 5 of the Kage were there, the majority of the heavy lifting was getting done by Naruto and Sasuke. And while Sasuke got absolutely worked by Ishiki, he was still there for the fight. He was able to distract Ishiki for a couple of seconds that allowed Naruto to activate Baryon mode. So once again, without Sasuke there, it's a possibility that even Ishiki wouldn't have died. So yeah, it's pretty hard to argue with his usefulness when he's been instrumental in the destruction of the 2 strongest entities we've ever seen in Naruto. Not to mention that he's also heavily responsible for curing Naruto's chakra sickness, as Naruto became afflicted with a chakra sickness that only Hagoromo had gotten previous to it. And we learned in Sasuke Retsudan that Sasuke went to a foreign land to look for a thing called polar particles, which could be turned into a cure for Naruto's disease. And while technically Naruto Retsudan, the last of the trilogy of Retsudan novels, hasn't been translated fully yet, so we don't know what Naruto and Orochimaru do to make sure that Naruto doesn't suffer from this chakra sickness anymore, but Sasuke's actions in Sasuke Retsudan were absolutely instrumental in making sure that Naruto could still use his chakra, which he then used to kill Ishiki. So yes, Sasuke's number 3, but not as useful as his wife, because coming in at number 2, we have Sakura.
Oh, Nick, Sakura wasn't even involved in the Momoshiki or the Ishiki fight.
Yes, she was. Sakura after the war arc was not only single-handedly responsible for taking out a terrorist group comprised of old Anbu members using a drug formulated with Kurama's chakra to give themselves pseudo-Jinchuriki cloaks, but also since the war arc has been running Konoha's hospital in Tsunade's stead, making Sakura the lead medical expert in Konoha. And while just the fact that for the last 15 or 16 years Sakura has been healing thousands of people in the hospital should be enough to put her at number 2 on this list, some of those thousands of people she has healed are Naruto and Sasuke. As Sakura, without saving Sasuke in the time travel arc and after the first time they fought Ishiki, would have died, and Sakura, without healing Naruto after he was jumped by Shino Uchiha, and once again the first time they battled with Ishiki, probably also would have died. Also, in the last, without Sakura restoring Naruto's chakra, he probably never would have woken up, as Naruto had almost all of his chakra sapped, and Sakura had to spend 3 days refilling his chakra for him, which then allowed Naruto to travel to the moon and battle Toneri and stop the moon from being thrown into the earth. Not to mention that Naruto and the rest of the people who made the trip to the moon wouldn't have been able to make the trip to the moon without Sakura, as Sakura was able to lead them through the pillar of light that leads to the moon because she is immune to genjutsu. Tie that into the fact that in Sasuke Retsudan, Sakura also played a massive role in getting the polar particles to heal Naruto's chakra illness, and you, my friends, have the only reason that Naruto and Sasuke have ever been in a situation to save the world. Sakura. Tie that into the fact that she's been leading one of the most important things in Konoha by herself for almost 2 decades, and yeah, she's more important than Sasuke. Because no Sakura, no Sasuke. Not vice versa. But of course, Sakura isn't as important as the number 1 entry on our list. Can you guess who it is? It's Naruto. Box Lunch sent me this. It's actually kind of cool. I feel like I should mention it because it was free. It's Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles meets Naruto, which feels like the crossover we never asked for, but it is cool. So yes, obviously Naruto is number 1. He's the Hokage of Konoha. He was basically the person who killed Momoshiki, even though Boruto was the one who delivered the Rasengan. But let's be real, he was supplying all the energy, and it was the energy that killed Momoshiki. Him and Kurama activating Baryon mode chopped down so much of Ishiki's life force that he wasn't able to plant a karma marking on Kawaki. Shikamaru putting him in front of the entire continent was because he knew that Naruto would be able to make sure that the entire continent wouldn't devolve into war because everybody in the continent loves Naruto. And if we're gonna give Hinata credit for making 2 of the strongest entities on Earth, we should probably give Naruto some of that credit as well. As the Hokage of Konoha, Naruto has never once shied away from the idea of putting himself in the line of fire, as Naruto believes himself to be the front lines of Konoha, going so far as to make sure that he is the first person to come into combat against the likes of Delta, and even after being significantly weakened in his battle against Ishiki, trying to make sure that his sons, Kawaki and Boruto, don't battle against the likes of Code without him there. Not to mention, he's also been instrumental in bringing Kawaki into the village, even though that's looking like it wasn't the best idea currently. And I believe while Naruto's usefulness is currently at an all-time low, as he's currently trapped in an interdimensional space where time and space don't move, I think he'll only become more useful one day when he becomes the next Jinchuriki of the Ten Tails. But who knows? Maybe he'll just live in the Daikoten forever. You guys tell me what Naruto's future is gonna be, and also tell me if you believe that my list is accurate in the comments below. And while you guys are down there, please, for me, like this video, subscribe to the page, and hit that noti bell. I mean, is anybody surprised? I would say to this day, Naruto is still the most useful character in Boruto, including Boruto and Kawaki.